Welcome to Beyond the Bottom Line with
Anna Letitia Cook.
Good morning and welcome to Beyond the Bottom Line. Today's guest is Corine Hines. She's the director of Visibly Different, a leadership and executive coach, EMCC senior practitioner, and a team and stakeholder coach. So welcome to the show, Corine.
Thank you, Anna. Thanks for the intro.
Thank you. Today we're going to talk about being a positive and inspiring leader and how to make a difference personally and collectively. And for me, leadership can come in many colours and leadership styles are even more different. So I want to focus really on the positive and inspiring one, which really goes beyond the bottom line, like the name of the show. So what are the advantages to both the leader and the employees to having a more positive and inspirational style of real human growth leadership?
It's an interesting question because I'd say about 5 years ago, I worked with a very successful high-tech company who had not that type of culture. They were really command and control. They had a charismatic leader at the top and, you know, they were efficient, they were very profitable. And I worked with them because of what they were trying to do in the business. But part of me was thinking, this culture isn't one I'd like to be part of, but it works. So who am I to suggest they do it any differently? And I did think that. I did kind of think, you know, each to their own. And then 5 years later, I'm back in because the charismatic leader needed to step away and wanted the business to be self-sufficient and sustain that growth without him at the top literally banging the table. And it wasn't working because the people that were within that culture, it was a little bit institutionalized. So they weren't able to replicate the same results without that figurehead. So it was really quite limiting. So limiting for the person. I don't think that he had a problem with the type of leadership style, but he couldn't do anything else. So they did actually manage to get somebody else in that position who is much more positive and able to create more distributed leadership. And so I'm able to see this difference. I've got this contrast between banging the table and then trying to have distributed leadership. And it's really quite interesting, the impact it's having. They're still able to get the results. So whether that will sustain, we'll see. But the thing that I'm noticing are things like the finance department, how saying things like, we've never really been able to have an impact within the business around the decision making because it was all so centralized. It was all so from the top. And now what we want to have is more of an impact. We want to be more visible. We want to do this. And it's like they've been set free. They've got these wings. And now I wouldn't have gone in there and said, wow, this is the difference you could potentially make if you set people free, because, you know, they were bringing the money in. But I am going to be interested in how it progresses, where that distributed leadership, that much more positive culture is going to spread out and the impact is going to have on people. So I see the contrast and the difference between, and I think giving people that opportunity to contribute individually and make more decisions and have more empowerment throughout the organisation. I think that's the benefit. And obviously being able to have a business that doesn't need you there banging the drum every day has got to be a positive for the leader as well. So
I mean, do you think it makes them makes the employees, makes the workforce more energized and more productive because when they feel that they're more, I mean, this is my thing, right? So I bang on about it endlessly. And I feel that if people are much more supported and free, so that they feel that they're trusted, they feel that they're appreciated, they feel that they've got a certain amount of leeway, it gives them more energy and it makes them more productive and more efficient, and they work faster because they feel the freedom to do more of what they want, how they want. I mean, but when I'm saying that, it's more the management level and employee level, and I've never really thought that much about what leaders need to change to get that, or how they need to be.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a bit like a child that is being constantly followed around and given the answers and prodded and directed in a particular way.
Yeah.
They might get results at school. They might manage to get to university and all the rest. They might do very well academically, but once you take away that push, then they haven't built the resilience. They haven't built the ability to bounce back and to really think for themselves. And I don't like to draw it back to parenting, because it shouldn't, it's not, but there's so many times I look at this and I think, wow, that's so similar to my own situation with my daughter, thinking, if I give her that answer, if I control that much, her ability to cope is being reduced. And that's where I see it. I think it's people's ability to be their own solutions, and that is I feel that must be energizing to know that actually there's a way of handling mistakes, there's a way of then this blame situation isn't happening and people are learning, and that's all. I feel that's very positive. So yeah, I think it potentially does help people feel more energized and get more from what they're doing all day.
Okay, so how can leaders develop more sustainable habits and then transform the work environment to match this? Because that, if they can do that, that's going to start the ball rolling for all the other growth, for all the other advantages that people can develop within themselves.
Yeah, and I think habits is a good way of thinking about it, Anna. Really, the habitual change, I feel that's where it's at. I think when I've worked with people over the years and they've tried to change things and they haven't worked out how to make it habitual, then it's short term.
Yeah.
So the way I see it, I think that habits change when people are really clear about what it is that they need to shift. So that work, when I work with people, a lot of the work is at the front. It's working out, okay, so there's something around how you're delegating to people, or there's something around how you're managing your workload or your priorities. Now, you can't just go get better at prioritizing. You've got to understand what's underneath the thing that's stopping someone getting better at prioritizing. So getting really clear about what that bit is quite important. And then I think sharing that with the people that are affected by it. So if I'm trying to improve one of my habits around delegation, around solving people's problems. So if I'm a bit of a rescuer, jumping in, rescuing, if I get a leader that comes across like that, and that's the thing they want to shift, then sharing that shift they're trying to make with the people that they're rescuing makes it more of a systemic thing. It's across the organization, rather than them in an office with me going, this is what I'm trying to work on. I encourage them to involve those people, because they can be helping that leader make that shift. And also it's quite humbling to admit that this is something that you've got a tendency to do and that you're trying to shift it. So I think a little bit of openness about that can really help people make that shift. And recruit them in the journey. They always get it's got a bit of a journey go, but it actually recruit people in it. Ask for their advice. You want to get better at listening. So go and talk to the people that you are trying to get better at listening, and say, what kind of things could I do? What could I shift? And then track it and ask for feedback. And I found that way of doing habits makes such a difference, because people are looking for it, and they're looking for good stuff. They're looking for you to do much better with it. So that's where I've seen much bigger results, sustained results, because that's all I'm interested in, really. If I go back in a year, is it still happening? Is this shift happened, and what impacts it had, across the organization? And I think going out there and sharing, however hard that might be, I think, and it encourages other people to do the same.
Don't they take a risk, the leaders, if they're saying,
Yeah.
tell me what you think? Because if I think of when I had my companies and my employees, if I said, tell me what you think about me and whether I do this right or wrong and blah, 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 what I do that's a pain in the ass, basically. I mean, I think, well, I would have just died.
It is quite scary, but you know, it is. I mean, well, the first part of it is doing a 360, so you're gathering data. Now, that doesn't mean it's all right. It's not the truth you're gathering perception.
Yeah.
So if somebody thinks that you're a bit of a, you know, pushing them too hard or, you know, whatever, it doesn't mean that you suddenly have to change everything about your personality. We're looking for the data and the themes, you know. What is the thing that's holding you back from getting better results? Not how can we make everyone happy? That's not what we're asking. We're just trying to look at what are the themes. And if there's a theme coming up that people think you're arrogant, like, what is it you're doing that might mean that that's what they think? And what is that stopping from happening? You know, it doesn't mean you have to say, hello, I'm arrogant, but it means what is it you're doing that's creating that perception? Because their perception is their reality. So if you walk into a meeting room, don't say hello to people, go to the front, don't acknowledge, you know, all of that kind of stuff. It might be because you're so in your day that you're
bubble.
not even you're in your bubble, you're not thinking, you're not actually being arrogant, you're introverted, and it's being misconstrued that you're being rude or whatever it is, but actually, you know, you're self-contained, you haven't even considered it. So it is a bit scary, but hey, you know, I'm working with people that are doing a lot of scary stuff and putting out
they have to assume it along with the other scary stuff.
Bring in more scary. But what I've found is that even though, and I am protective of them, so if I don't want them to like open up every single bit of themselves to the whole organization. This is just about going, how can we do this in a contained way that you feel safe enough to do, and that there's something specific that's going to be useful for you and the organization. And then if it's something that they can share, I've seen, you know, CEOs do it, and then other people in their leadership team do. And what I've got one client who's the MD is very much sharing. And first of all, we did it in the director group. So they all shared. And then they all made suggestions about how they could improve that thing. But then they realized how, okay, this isn't the end of the world, and they started working with people that report into them, sharing that. So it's small steps maybe sometimes, but I do really feel that stakeholder approach, which is the one I often use, is the one that can get the biggest results for the longest, you know, sustainable time.
So apart from the fact of everyone saying you're horrible, what are the other challenges for a leader when they're trying to transform to, you know, a different environment or a different way of thinking and working? Because it's not, I work with several countries, and I'm thinking of one country in particular, and transformation is not easy in that particular country because they have an incredibly static, resistant mentality over there. So the idea of going to something else, they get problems everywhere. So what would you say are the biggest challenges?
I think, are we talking about challenges for a leader making a behavior change and
changing if they want to transform the environment, and if they want to transform the way of thinking or the way of working? So if it's been, you know, control and command, as you said, and they want to go more positive, inspiring, creative, that type of thing, what are they likely to come up against?
Well, I think the phrase that comes to mind is mobilize the middle, which if they're trying to, like, for example, a more distributed leadership approach, so it's not just like a top-down command and control, they're actually they see the benefits themselves of having decisions being made at a lower level in the organization, and they want to implement that. The worst thing they can do is do it in a top-down approach, you know, like we've decided, you know. So this is where I think the benefit can be had from looking at the organization and working out the middle, you know, that in that hierarchical, where there are people that are already on that journey with them, positive people in there, and finding those people to make some movement happen, and actually do it in a small way, localized way. So there's different approaches to this and different ways to looking at it, but there's ways of looking at how things are happening now and actually working with those people so that they can start looking at what the environment is like now and what small changes can they make at their level and how that can build over time, rather than it. I'm not a massive kind of change consultant, so that I don't go in necessarily going, this is a great big change initiative. So I work with teams and I work with them to help them improve how they're working together, but also working with other teams as well. So I think whenever I see people getting better at running their exec team meetings and how they communicate and give feedback and all of this, and sometimes I come along and I'm like, wow, there's some real good practice going on here. You know, you're reflecting on your meetings at the end of them, you're improving how that works, you're, you know, doing all this. But then I realize they're in a little bubble a bubble of brilliance, and there used to be some stuff around high performing teams which was all just about that little bubble being really high performing, but actually no, that is not a high performing team, because it can't operate, you know, sales can't work in isolation of operations, you know. So trying to help there be some excellence that can spread, I think that's rather than it be massive great big change thing that happens and it's this big initiative, I just think getting some of the always focusing on those top 20% of people that are really there for the change, and not putting all the energy into the people that are resistant to it. So I think that moving the ship in that way, and I think on an individual level, the biggest thing I see that stops shifts in behavior sustaining is when people haven't learned how to reflect. It's a really tiny little thing, but it's like the kind of emotional regulation thing. So if people have learned how to, on a regular basis, keep returning to, what emotion am I feeling, what did I want to achieve today, what blocked me from getting there, how did I relate to that person, what are my goals, and actually come back to that would be the thing. If I see people just being in the moment, then I think it's very hard to keep sustaining the change that they're looking for, because they just have to keep on doing course correct. I think it's course correct the whole time. It's not like, hey, now I'm a fantastic communicator, delegator, inspiring leader. I didn't have to think about that anymore. I'm just going to be, because I think that's not where it's at. But if you're constantly making mistakes and reflecting on them and course correcting, I think that's the more, and I think you build, you know, you build your skills in that as you do it.
Do you find that sometimes they can get completely the wrong end of the stick about what actually they need to work on, or they think that, I'm talking about the leaders, they think that the problem is, I don't know, X, Y, or Z, when in fact it's U or V, but because they've got so focused, they're either sort of just forgetting it, or they've never considered it, or they've seen a response and they've attributed it to the wrong thing. So do you find that often or not? Because sometimes I've done things, I mean, I'm not, you know, big company, but I've done things that I thought, oh, it's because of that. And then I had my secretary was amazing, and she said anything, you know, she was very open and helpful, and she'd say, don't be so bloody silly, Anna, of course it's not that, it's that. And I was like, oh yeah, she's right. But you just get so fixed in your little bubble that
Yeah,
you
yeah.
think it's something. So do you see that with leaders and leaders with change, or when they're trying to change to a more positive, holistic mindset, that they focus on the wrong thing or they bypass something important?
I I think in the olden days,
Oh God, another one
no,
telling me about my age.
no, I mean with me. I think when I very first started coaching, there
Yeah,
was a really good chance that I would bypass, like really early days, like people would bypass what's really at the root of it. They'd
mm,
say, oh, I need to deal with my time management skills.
yeah,
And I'd be like, oh, okay, let's work on that then. I mean, this is really, really early days.
yeah,
Um, and the reality is, as time went by, it became clear what it was that they needed to work on, which was possibly the saying no, or the managing up,
yeah,
or the whatever it was. So
yeah,
like, as just an example but I think now, over the years, I've seen this chart, this possibility that you might end
yeah,
up kind of going off on the wrong track. And I think that's why I gather data,
yeah,
like from all sorts of places
yeah,
that we can get data from. How can we look inside, and also from outside? Well, the results telling us what is coming up. And then the other thing I do is, say they've found out, and this is specifically around behavior change,
yeah,
they've realized what they need to change to make things more positive, and having a different mindset, improving how they listen. And then I do perception surveys as well.
yeah,
So let's just make sure the things you're trying to change, the people you're bringing in, that actually they're feeling the change too.
yes,
And that's such a big thing, because I do sometimes, like, I am very suspicious. If I work with someone, they're like, oh my gosh, yes, really going well. I'm like, come on, we've got to have a crisis. Can't go that well. Never. It has to not go well at some point for it to be difficult to
yeah,
like come back from.
yeah,
So that's why, halfway point and at the end point, we'll do a little mini survey, and we'll just say, have you seen anything shift,
yeah,
anything change? And they've got, and things have got worse as well. They've got that as an option on the survey, so that we
yeah,
can just check in and say, this is how you're perceiving this shift, and
yeah,
this is how it's being seen from other people. And that's a
yeah,
nice little reality check to make
yeah,
sure that, and it gives people the opportunity to say, you were working on the wrong thing.
yeah,
You feel like this is really important to you, but actually there's a car crash going on over here.
yes,
And that doesn't tend to happen, to be honest, because I
yeah,
think spend so much time working on what needs to shift, but also in order to achieve what. That's like the key
yes,
thing. It's not just behavior change for the sake of it.
yeah,
In order to achieve what goal at the end of a year in the
yeah,
business,
yeah,
that's going to be really important to the stakeholders that we're sort of talking to.
yeah.
So yeah.
So for the leader and the workforce that want to basically become more holistic, success orientated, more including well-being, and more positive, healthier, blah blah blah, what strategies can they practically put in place so that the whole workforce can develop and grow, and that they
Mm-hmm.
can create sustainable behavior change and really improve the overall well-being of everyone, so that it's not just the business is better, but the people are happier, they're healthier. I mean, again, I bang on about holistic, so it's health,
Mm-hmm.
it's fitness, as everything, as well as
Mm-hmm.
being more productive people in the company and in themselves, so that they enjoy what they do more, and that they can face the challenges. I mean, the challenges will still be there, but they can face them with a different attitude, so with less stress and with more energy. Are
Oh,
there any
that's a big
huge
ask, Anna.
question? I know, sorry. Just, give me the
It's my
miracle.
my magic wand. I'll just go and
Exactly.
grab it.
Yeah.
My answer is going to seem really feeble. However, there is a reason. No,
Okay.
it's going to sound a bit like, oh yeah, whatever. But I think the one thing that I see not being done very well, which I think done well, has this potential to create the type of relationships, because I think it's about relationships. I think if you go into work and you've got a relationship with the people that are around you that is positive and that is honest, and you're able to say what needs to be said, I think that is going to have such an impact. And it does. I see it have a massive impact. And so it's all about connections for me. Like those teams that need to connect in order to be really properly high performing. I think that people need connections. And that's where I think the one little thing that if I could just, when I work with a client, I look around me and that's kind of like, oh, how's this bit going? If this bit is good, but not really, because they think it's good, but it's not, then I start going, okay, this is the thing you could really make a change. And that is him having good one-to-ones.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I think and when I say one-to-ones, I don't mean appraisals. I don't mean 6-month reviews. They feature in the whole great big picture, but I don't mean those. I mean monthly or fortnightly or however the frequency is, catch-ups. That are done really well and are not operational. They're not like, tell me how you're getting on that project. They are, so let's take a bit of time out and just connect and talk about how things are for you, in the team, what might be blocking you from what you're trying to achieve. What was a really great win for you last week? What was something you'd have done differently? So it's like coaching. But the manager and the person, their direct report, both play a part in it. It's not being done to you. You prep for it. You ask for what type of one-to-one you want to have. Actually, I think I need to do a career review one-to-one in this quarter. I think I'd really appreciate that. And we've got a format we can use. And there's like, I happen to partner with an organization that creates a platform that encourages that, so they don't have to think about it, all the templates there and everything. So and if I go into a client, I try to work my team coaching around that type of framework so that they don't have to make it up. It's there for them. And if they've got stuff there like, oh, what template could I use? Actually, I just want to have a quick one-to-one. It's 3 questions. That's what I need. If I could get my magic wand and do that, because I think if someone's not sleeping, they're working too long hours, they're not doing any exercise, I think that stuff comes up because people will talk because they're human beings. It's not just like, how are you doing on the project? It's, I had a terrible night last night because da-da-da is happening. It encourages that trust and everything. So that would be my...
I've got one of my CEOs who's thinks differently to most of the other ones in that sector, and he likes having one-to-ones with everybody, but he doesn't say, how are you? He says, so tell me, what's your ranking for your pleasure in life and business at the moment, from 1 to 10? What would you say? And he says every single time they'll say 7 or 8 or 6 or whatever. And he says he doesn't even need to say anything else. They then say, and I rank it at that number because, and they go through absolutely everything. And he doesn't try to get it specifically for work, because he believes that work and private life, they're all intermingled. Absolutely. And he says that he finds with that, people feel much more appreciated. And also they feel that they can really say what they want to say. And it helps them analyze themselves what's good and bad in their life without even thinking about it. Where if you say, how are you? Everyone says fine.
You get the stop answer.
Even if they're dying, they'll say they're fine. And he thinks that works really well. And I
think ranking's great.
And that they get a much better relationship because they feel they can say so much more because they can explain the ranking. And it's not like a attack one way or the other.
And there's no right thing he's searching for.
Exactly.
Or when I kick off with teams, I get them to rate where they're at out of 10.
Yeah.
And again, it just gives them context to be able to talk based on that number. It's a really nice way of separating. So nice add-on to it. That would be my thing. So no, it's not feeble. Now you're saying it, I think it's very
I think it's very good.
hard hitting.
It's a good answer.
But it sounds like, oh, I have one-to-ones. Yeah, we do that. And I hear people go, yeah, we do that. And I'm like, but
there's one-to-ones and one-to-ones.
One-to-ones. And I'm talking about the one-to-ones. But I've seen the results, but yeah.
No, if people feel they can talk, even just being able to talk can evacuate so many of the problems and the stresses and everything else.
Just knowing you can download. Absolutely.
That if you can rant, having a rant is good.
Rant get it out.
That you don't have someone then judging you on it, but you can just go
you know. But then then if you hear 3 rants in a row, then you can, you know, potentially be going like, I'm hearing this more, like, you know, what and you can like encourage people to decide what they need to do to work on this rant thing. But it all starts with having the conversation, because otherwise they're like a, you know, explosion
hidden. Exactly. So for managers who are aiming to become leaders, what can they do to take the first steps sort of along the path and to try and get ready to step up to a higher role, because it's not always evident?
No, and it's interesting really, because I think when I see managers or team leaders, I think I'd say the one thing they might want to try to practice doing is taking a step back, changing their horizons, even if it's temporarily, to just be looking at something else as well as the operational day-to-day stuff. I think that's the thing that people all over at whatever level get drawn to, because it's their work, you know, their day-to-day. And I encourage them to have a little look. Again, it's about looking sideways and over the hill. So, you know, if they're in a sales team and they're managing a sales team, you know, it's about looking, you know, what's actually happening over here in this other team. What can I see? What can I look at? What question could I ask? Could I talk to one of the other managers at the other levels, start conversations with them about the business, not just about, you know, their team, about the business, and then looking over the horizons. And even though they might not know what they're looking for, if they could just pause, and this is a little bit like the reflecting, if they could just look above the day-to-day for a bit and just think, actually, what am I noticing? If they could just ask themselves that question, look above, look across at the other horizons, what am I looking for in the future? You know, what might be coming at us? And then look to the sides. What else am I noticing? Now that might seem a little bit this not very tangible thing for somebody doing that's trying to, you know, there are obviously quite tangible things that they can do about making sure they're having those conversations with their manager about what sorts of things they can become involved with. But that skill of being able to just press pause and change what their horizon is they're looking at, and the direction they're looking at, I think that will hold them in good stead, because they might start noticing stuff. And that's really important. If you just like this the whole time, then you're not going to have developed that skill of like the bigger picture.
Leaders have got to see what's coming and why and how in advance, so they need to be able to see all the different sort of factors that are bubbling away,
the moving parts,
what's going to be the volcanic lava and what's going to be the still pond, so to speak. But
exactly.
good. So, I hadn't thought of that, but exactly. So okay,
but I do see it.
So any final piece of wisdom or key strategy that we should keep in mind to help us going forward? This is my killer question.
Killer question. Damn it, I used it up on the one-to-ones. I think that, I mean, be kind, to yourself. I
Yeah.
think that's the thing. If you're trying to make these changes, of
Yeah.
which I'm always doing too. So that's the thing. I join my clients in the things they're trying to shift and develop. I take on challenges. I make myself uncomfortable, and
Do
sometimes I
you?
can make myself uncomfortable.
I think that
Yes.
the fact that you jump in and do the challenges with them, I think that's amazing.
Well,
Good.
I challenge myself in my own ways.
Yes,
So
yes,
I'm
yes.
doing I'm
Yeah.
finishing a master's in creative writing. I'm started playing football, having never don't know the rules last last month. So
Minor detail, don't know the
a
rules.
minor detail. I do know how they feel about
Yeah.
feeling out of their comfort zone and trying to,
Yeah.
and I'm trying to the habit, the reading about habits and how to develop the psychology of them is just my thing. I really love it, but I
Yeah.
find it incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
So I am there with them, knowing, gosh, I know what it's like to lapse.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know what it's like to have good intentions and to take too
Yeah.
much on,
Yeah.
and to think I'm going to have written a novel in a year and then beat myself up because I'm not as good as I think I should be, and all of that. And I think what I learn when I learn with my clients and learn myself is to be kinder to myself, because it doesn't help me if I'm kicking myself for
Yeah.
not being as good as I think I should be. So
Yeah.
being kind, and I do think course correct is how I'll probably spend my whole life, just
Yeah.
attempting stuff, slight lapse, course correct.
Yeah.
So reflecting and doing all that. So I see this as a constant thing rather than an end point that I'm going to have reached and not have to change anything. But in the journey of doing that, if I can be kind to myself and notice myself kicking myself and go, okay, course correct.
Yeah.
Then that's
But course correct is wonderful, because it gives you so many opportunities, doesn't it? And if you're not, so many people, they think, well, no, I decided I'm going to do this, and if I don't do this, I'm a failure. But life isn't like that. Life changes all around you. So if you stay rigid on one line, you're going to get battered. So if you're just like, well, okay, let's do a bit of a swerve.
Fine. And if you notice you're off and it's not happened, then was it the right path? And if it is the right path, how can you gently ease yourself back to it? But I feel that when I meet people that are like that with themselves, they get much more success than the rigid kind of, and there's so many people that are so rigid, it's either that or nothing. It's all or nothing. I want that or I'm going to stop. And you're thinking, so and I relate to that, because I felt that over, when I hear myself saying I'm the kind of person who, and it's a thing that's not great about myself, then I have to knock out of myself. And Carol Dweck's growth mindset was the thing that changed a lot. And this is years old stuff, that I read a long time ago. But I try to help my daughter with that growth mindset, so that she's not kind of all or nothing about things. And I have varying results, success with my daughter, but she sees me doing, I know,
I think it's the other way now. My daughter's telling me what to do, and I'm like,
oh mine God. Is already, it's only 11.
Oh shit.
I know.
Okay, well, mine's 30. It's a bit different.
No, she's but I think, well, if I keep showing her that I try stuff and I fail, and I keep trying and I try different stuff, and I feel like that's probably quite a good lesson for her to see her mum having a go. But
I think I'm going to take that. I'm going to get a Post-it note and stick that on my computer. Course correct and be kind. I think it's brilliant.
Be kind.
Brilliant. Thank you.
So it was lovely to catch up, Hannah.
I know. Well, thank you very much for being on Beyond the Bottom Line. Thank you for all your wisdom and expertise and strategies. Everybody, you've been listening and watching, sorry, some of you will be video, some of you will be audio, to Corine Hines. I hope you've enjoyed it. You'll find all her links, etc., on the bottom of the page. And again, Corine, thank you very much for coming and being on the show.
It was a pleasure. Thank you, Anna.
See you all again next week. Bye.